Hi, I'm Ameya, and you are listening to Far From Home, a story of forced migration. Recently, in my school, a fight broke out between two kids in fourth grade in a discussion about the war in the Middle East. A small group of my classmates think that what is outside of the world is none of our business, but almost all of us are from different countries, and we believe that the world is our home. My friends from Iran, Ukraine, Afghanistan, Ethiopia, and other communities know either firsthand or through their family members what it's like to be forcibly removed from the place you call home without any notice or any choice. If we do not talk about what's going on in the world, then we are forgetting about the people impacted. There are people all over the world who can no longer visit their home again. There are refugees. In fact, there are about 130 million people around the world who are expected to be forcibly displaced or stateless by the end of 2024. I myself might have not cared so much if I hadn't known about my own grandfather's story. My grandfather, Kishore Desai, was forced to leave his birthplace, Uganda, in the 1970s, along other Indians under the command of the brutal dictator, General Idi Amin. His story of South Asians living in East Africa is not a story that is well known or talked about until now. The first Asian Indians made their way to Uganda as laborers to help build a railway system while Uganda was under British colonial rule. Upon completion of the railway system, many Indians were given British passports with all the rights afforded to British citizens. This led to an influx of Indian immigrants to Uganda in search of a better life and economic prosperity.
My father arrived in Kampala and landed a job in a sugar factory in the town of Lugazi, 30 miles east of Kampala. My town of Lugazi was a typical company town with a sugar factory as an anchor with staff quarters for the employees. Sugarcane fields stretch for miles all around as far as the eyes can see. We used to play a lot of sports by the side of sugarcane fields, and anytime one was hungry or thirsty, we just broke a sugarcane and chewed on it for instant sugar rush.
Uganda gained its independence in 1962, but in the following years, Uganda's future was shaped largely by political power struggles and frequent changes in leadership. While some villages, like Lugazi, seemed unaffected by these changes, something was definitely brewing underneath the surface.
Animosity towards or resentment of Indians by native Ugandans was not apparent in daily conversations, but at national level of politics, you could feel a resentment or discontent that was being promoted by some politicians.
Fast forward to 1971. General Idi Amin assumed complete control over Uganda after a military coup and declared himself president for life. The resentment towards non-native Ugandans only seemed to grow, but nobody was prepared for what followed.
I was a student at a university in India and had just visited my family in Uganda during my summer break in June 1972. And at that time, there was no sign of any disruption in daily life of Indians. I returned to India after my summer break to continue my studies in the university in July of 1972. But a month later, in August of 1972, I was turned to learn of the deadline imposed for the forced expulsion of Indians from Uganda.
You heard that correctly. During a live national broadcast, Idi Amin gave the Indians 90 days to leave Uganda and to renounce their Ugandan citizenship. My grandfather's life changed forever.
I was in shock and disbelief. My life was in total chaos. My family had to scramble and wait in long lines at British Embassy to get visas for London since they had British passports and then get on the first available flight. My family, once intact, was dispersed all over the world. We were never a single family unit again.
While most of my grandfather's family were able to escape to other countries, my grandfather was suddenly thrust into a dire situation.
In 1962, I had renounced my British passport to become a Uganda citizen with a Uganda passport. However, the forced expulsion also meant that Uganda passports were no longer valid for Indians who had become Uganda citizens by birth. I was not eligible for an Indian passport because I was not born in India. Now here I am, a student trying to finish my studies in India, and I'm suddenly a stateless person who cannot go anywhere after my studies.
Over the next few years, my grandfather finished his studies in Bombay, but remained stateless. With his family scattered, he had limited options of where to settle. However, his elder brother had eventually found his way to the US and was able to sponsor my grandfather.
And when I immigrated to the United States, I had to start all over again because US did not recognize my credentials. I worked my way stocking grocery shelves, which was very humbling and hard.
My grandfather never returned to Uganda, and I often wonder if he ever thinks about visiting his birthplace again. My heart breaks for him as I hear the subtle tone of yearning and sadness in his voice, a reflection of broken dreams and shattered lives, of what was and what could have been.
Now, living in US ever since 1976, whenever I see or hear Uganda mentioned in the news, I think of life that I had to leave behind. When I see on TV a Ugandan athlete win an Olympic medal, I feel connected to Uganda all over again. If I see certain fruits like mango or passion fruit in the supermarket, I reminisce about life in Uganda. It's not a place I have been back to since leaving, but I dream one day of going back.
My friends and I want to be that generation that keeps talking about the stories of displacement like my grandfather's that don't get told often enough. I think when we share the pain and suffering of our history, we can ensure it doesn't happen to others. But most importantly, to show that we care and know what people are going through in these hard times and support them.